Hi, I'm Gigi Mitchell. Welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how you can make this dough roller, which I designed and built using simple and easy to find hardware and kitchen materials. You can use this dough roller to roll out any kind of dough, such as pasta dough or cracker dough or whatever you would like, but I built this with croissants in mind. This dough roller has taken my croissant game to the next level. It allows me to make layers that are very thin and even. These sourdough croissants are absolutely beautiful and delicious. So in this video, I will demonstrate how to build the dough roller and then also how I used it to roll out or laminate my croissant dough. Please remember, my measurements are more of a guide. You don't need to follow them exactly. I'll have them in the description below. You'll need a countertop or table. Mine was 1.5 inches thick. You'll need a cutting board. This one is 14 by 17 inches and 3/4 inch thick. It can't have any rubber feet on the bottom. It has to be able to slide on your counter or tabletop. You'll need a stone or marble rolling pin where the roller part spins around on the handle. The handles of the rolling pin have to extend beyond the cutting board by at least 1 inch. This rolling pin is 18 inches long and the marble roller part is 10 inches long. This rolling pin is also 2 3/4 inches thick. Next we have 2 C-clamps. These are 2.5 inches long, but I later switched to 3 inches, and I recommend you start with 3 inches. Followed by 2 bolts that are the same thickness as the handles of the C-clamps. My bolts are 1/8 inch thick. The length isn't really important. Also, I didn't really end up using the nuts for these bolts, as you'll see later in the video. Up next we have some nuts and washers with 3/8 inch wide holes. They need to fit on the bolts of the C-clamps. We're going to take off the handles of the C-clamps, so I recommend that you do that first and then take your C-clamp to the hardware store and try on the nuts and washers to make sure they fit. You'll need a drill with a 3/8 inch wide drill bit, a handsaw with a carbide steel blade to cut through metal, a round file 3/8 inch wide or less, a piece of wood, measuring tape of your choice, an adjustable wrench, optional 4mm wide slats, clear Gorilla Glue, and a Sharpie. Let's get started. You're going to want to use the full length of the bolt of the C-clamp. So to that end, we're going to extend the fixed jaw with our piece of wood. The clamp will need to be able to fit your counter and be tightened without losing any significant amount of length in the bolt part. Now we need to saw off the ends of the C-clamp's handles so that we can take them out. This is the hard part. You will need to clamp down the clamp, and it'll be wobbly, so hold it down with your hand, but be very careful with your fingers and just go slow. It'll come off. Next, score the fixed jaws of the clamps with your saw. Cut the 2 pieces out of your wood at the marked desired length. Install the 2 thin bolts as your new clamp handles, and then one by one, glue your piece of wood to the fixed jaw of the clamp and then clamp it down to set. Once your clamps are tightened, remove their handles. Install 1 nut and 1 washer on each of the clamps. And now we are ready to prepare our rolling pin. Drill a 3/4 inch hole in the center of one handle. The hole has to be wide enough to move up and down the clamp bolt freely, so go ahead and adjust its size with the round file if needed. Now make a hole in the center of the opposite handle. The two holes have to line up. They have to be facing the same way, be in line with each other, and be in the center of the handle. I personally eyeballed it and it turned out just fine. If you'd like to use a more precise method than that, then by all means feel free. The clamp does have this movable jaw, which can make up for an imperfection in how the holes line up, but do try to line them up as perfectly as possible. And we are ready to mount our rolling pin. Slide the bolts into the drilled holes and make sure that they're sliding freely. Adjust your clamps. The glue should have mostly set by now. Make sure the clamps are on tight, and once they are, you can take out the handles. And now I'm going to configure it with the wooden slats. You will not have to take measure with these slats every time that you use this dough roller. I certainly stopped using them. Eyeballing it and getting a feel for it will work quite well. Go ahead and install your second set of washers and nuts. And now you're going to be ready to roll some dough. The first thing that I'm going to roll out is actually my barrage of butter. Squish it in some parchment paper and fold the parchment paper into a square. Then I lower my rolling pin by adjusting the nuts on my C-clamp bolts. I start to repeatedly pass the butter through the rolling pin and continuously lower the rolling pin little by little. I repeat this until all the corners of my parchment paper square are filled with butter. And then it's off to the fridge. And now I'm going to start rolling out my dough. I'm adjusting my rolling pin to a higher setting, and gradually I will be lowering it down. Also, I should mention that I have chilled my cutting board in the freezer for 30 minutes to an hour. This really helps with croissant dough lamination by preventing the butter from melting. I gradually, little by little, lower my rolling pin by adjusting the nuts on the bolts. It's very important that you go gradually here. Now I am placing the butter in the middle of my dough, folding it in, and beginning the lamination process. I have raised the nuts on my bolts almost all the way to the top, so that the rolling pin just barely touches the dough at first. Then I start to lower the rolling pin about 1 millimeter to 1.5 millimeters at a time. I usually do this by lowering the bottom nuts by about 2 turns, and then I secure the top nuts so that the rolling pin stays in place. I don't secure the top nuts too tightly, just enough so that the rolling pin doesn't move up while I roll the dough. Again, I'm going very gradually, never applying any intense pressure which would rupture the dough, just lowering the rolling pin little by little. But still, the dough rolls out fairly quickly, even when it's not sped up. Now I am performing my first fold, and again I'm lifting my rolling pin all the way up to the highest setting, where it will barely touch the dough at first, and then I start rolling it out little by little. It's quite important that you can raise your rolling pin to a high enough setting where it doesn't squish down on a dough that has been folded several times. That is why I recommended you start with at least a 3-inch long C-clamp. The bolt really has to have enough length for you to be able to roll out that folded dough very gradually. I've performed my second fold, and I'm putting away my dough in the fridge and my cutting board in the freezer for 1 hour. And now I'm doing my final opening up of the dough, again raising the rolling pin all the way up to its highest setting, getting ready to roll it all out little by little. First, I'm rolling out what will be the length of my croissant triangles. As an important side note, be very careful to hold your cutting board firmly as you pull it through. There is a risk of dropping it and your dough to the floor if you don't hold it firmly at all times. The length of the croissant triangles needs to be about 10 inches, which happens to be the length of my rolling pin. Once I've rolled the dough out to 10 inches, I turn it over on its side, and now I'm getting ready for the final rollout. I'll be rolling it out to about a 3 to 4 millimeter thickness. I don't want it to get any thinner than 3 millimeters. We're getting pretty close here. And done! Here's a close-up of our laminated dough. You can see we don't have any tears anywhere. We just have fine, ultra-thin and even layers of dough and butter all throughout. And here is just a quick demo of how I cut out my croissant triangles. I tend to give them a 4-inch base, and I cut a little slit at the base. Then I gently stretch the triangle and roll them up. I use every part of the dough. Sometimes I braid the irregular trimmings, and sometimes I shape them into little baby croissants. And voila! Thank you for watching, and I hope that this video will inspire some of you to make this lovely dough roller and roll out some beautiful doughs with it. If you built this, please let me know how it goes for you in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and also subscribe to this channel, because soon I will be posting my recipe for my sourdough croissants. You can also tag me on Instagram at ggmitchell.us or on Facebook at ggmitchelldesigns. Stay safe and have a great day!